going to spend here today together. All right, so I want to welcome you all. I want to welcome you all on behalf of the initiator of the Mindshift Initiative, Dayo, Okunlola. I want to welcome you to this e-conference, and I'm sure that by the time we are done, you would have a lot to, you have a lot that you've learned. So thank you for joining. Thank you for joining. Thank you for joining. Just like I said earlier, if you have, let's try to, even as the program is going, the conference is going on, let's try to send the link to people and let's notify. Okay, sorry, let me just quickly attend to something here. Okay, maybe in all right, so I think we can start. We are close to 10 on the call, so that we can have enough time to learn. So once again, on behalf of Dayo, Okunlola, the initiator of the Mindshift Initiative, I welcome every one of us to the Failure Advantage, our focus for the Journey to Fulfillment 2025. And like I said, I know that you have a lot to learn in this 80-90 minutes that we're going to spend in together. All right, so I would just want to take a short prayer, then we'll start. Oh Lord, we thank you because we know that you are the giver of wisdom, you are the giver of life. And thank you because you are the Spirit of truth. We are gathered here today to learn. We ask that you teach us and make us better in the name of Jesus. Strengthen your sons that will speak into us and let our lives be transformed by reason of their teaching in the name of Jesus. Amen. Amen. All right, so just before I call on the initiator to introduce and bring on the first speaker, I would just want to say these few words just to prepare our mind for what is coming. Failure advantage, the failure advantage. I know that many of us, especially from the African soil, there is something about, how correction come to us when we fail. And many of us grew to, to dread failure. Yes, which is the right thing, right? But many of us grew to see failure as a totally bad thing. And we don't have anything, to take from it. You don't have anything to learn from it. Once you fail, you're failed. You just feel bad and remain in that state. All right, so there is always a journey, of varying distance between the conception of an idea and the fulfillment of that idea. So when something comes, when an idea comes, or when you start a journey, there is always a distance. Now, for each assignment or project or idea, it takes, varying distances, and also individually, right? But between the conception and the fulfillment, a lot happens in the middle. A lot happens in the middle. And most people who eventually get fulfilled on that project or that idea, they have a lot of stories to tell. Most times, these stories are not, they are not just successes and wins. Yeah, they're not just successes and wins. A lot of times, stories of failures that, they get to share at the end, when they eventually get fulfilled. Along the line, they share, okay, these are the mistakes I made at this point, I failed, all right? And so it's not just about what we discover, it's not just about the successes and the wins, it's also about the failures, because there is something that failure has to offer. Maybe, let me say it again. There's something failure has to offer if we, approach it with the right mindset. Yeah, if we approach it with the right mindset, right? Nothing that you see on the path of fulfillment is what's stopping you. I say that again. Nothing that you see on the path of fulfillment is what's stopping you. Some people stopped halfway because success got into their mind. Not that they've got into where they're going to, but they got to a spot, and maybe they just saw a big win just on the journey, and they made that point their destination. But for many, on that journey, failure comes, and they make that failure the ending point on that journey. So they are not able to continue the journey because they fail. They are not able to, think again or dream again because they failed. I want to say this, just as John Barrymore said. He said, "A man is not old until regrets take the place of dreams. A man is not old until regrets takes the place of dreams." All right. So when you fail, what happens? Do you look ahead, or you stay at that same spot and you start regretting, or you look out for what you're going to learn from that experience, and you move ahead and you forge ahead? All right. Stanley Judas said this. I'll just use this to stop, then we get into it. He said, "Don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to fail. Don't waste energy trying to cover up your failure. Don't be afraid to fail. Don't waste energy trying to cover up your failure." And now, this is where he said, if you are not failing, you are not growing. I believe you've heard this a lot of times. If you are not failing, you are not growing. You can't be 100% right at doing anything at one point or the other. Especially, yes, we are all where we are today because in the course of growth, in the course of growing, we got to a point we didn't do something right. We went back to correct it. Then we're able to move ahead. All right. So there are a lot of lessons to learn when failure comes in. And today, in the next 1 hour, there's a lot we'll be learning from people who have gone through this journey. Now, the teachings today are 100% practical. Joe Adedokun will be coming, Dayo Okunlola will be coming up, to share practical experiences and how we can turn our failures, take advantage of our failures, and use it as a springboard to greater heights and not something that keeps us at the same level. So when you fall or when you fail, be sure that you pick something up. There is something to learn anytime you fall. There is something to learn anytime you fail. So with that, I want to welcome you once again to Journey to Fulfillment 2025, the Failure Advantage. And from here, I want to invite Dayo Okunlola, the initiator of the Mindshift Initiative, to take it up from here and invite our first speaker. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, PT. That was really very powerful opening session, and thank you again. I took my pen, I was taking some notes. So I think PT has done justice to welcoming everybody. I just want to put a layer on that. We appreciate your presence, and we're so glad you made it. Right? I think just we're one of the few people that are so intentional about the outlook of our lives, and so that intentionality is reflecting this morning and this afternoon. So, without further ado, without wasting time, I want to invite my very good friend. There's a lot to be said about the failure advantage, and PT has done justice, just justice. It really isn't anything else I want to say about that. But some two keynotes that I want you to pick on that I'm sure you're going to hear repeatedly today from Joe and from myself is that you have to understand that if you're not failing, you're not growing, right? If you're not failing, you're not growing. So that is a metric to measure success, right? One of the metric to measure growth is failure, right? And we're going to open our minds and our heart to that later on as we go in this. And the other thing is celebrate wins, right? That's what I heard him say indirectly. I inferred that. So celebrate wins, but pay more attention to your losses. Celebrate wins, pay more attention to your losses. So without wasting time, I want to invite my very good friend. It's been a long time coming, being together on this journey. And I think trusting God for many more years together on this journey. He's an architect, really successful architect in Nigeria. Um, and he's got very practical experiences. And if you think about someone who's an architect who puts up different kinds of structures, you should understand that failure would not be new to such a person, right? But their responses to this failure have shaped them and shaped their future. So without further ado, please welcome with me Joe Adedokun as it takes us for the next few minutes on the journey. Over to you, Joe.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Trust we're all doing well.
Yes. Welcome. Thank you. Thank you for
Good
honoring
afternoon,
the
bro.
invitation.
It's a beautiful opportunity to be joining like minds this morning to share ideas and to learn again. Thank you all for joining. I would like to commend my very good friend, the visionary of the Mindshift Initiative, Dayo Okunlola, for coming up with this very creative program that is set to enlighten us and set us up for some very good development in our minds and in our thinking. Thank you very much. Without wasting time, I would like to start with the word failure. I think a few things have been said already for the introduction, but I would like to emphasize that failure as a word is not what is palatable for humans. It is a word we really dread a lot. And most times when we venture or when we are involved in anything in life, it's a major fear. The fear of failure is something that holds people down a lot. But over the years, I've come to realize in my adventure in business, in my professional adventure, I've come to realize that a lot of people are held down not by failure itself, but by the fear that when they venture out, they're going to be held down. So I went back, I looked at the meaning of failure, and it comes to the fact that failure means the lack of success. And I feel the definition, the contemporary meaning given to success, to failure on its own, is enough to keep people back. So it requires us, one way or the other, recalibrating our mindset to our personal definition to failure. And it's beginning to dawn on me that as champions, we should see failure as a necessary recipe to success and as a necessary step, a necessary occurrence we experience while we are trying to fight through the journey to success. It should even be breakfast for champions. It shouldn't be coming as a surprise to us. And the truth about it is failure itself, it's not the most important thing. It's how we perceive it and the decisions we take after it occurs and our attitude to it that really matters and determines the success journey as a whole. So basically, it isn't what happens to us that matters, but our disposition to it. In every aspect of our lives, we will handle different ventures that failures will come our way, but it is our attitude that determines the final outlook. Jim Rohn says something, it is not the set of the sails that matters, not the direction of the wind that determines which way we would go. I'll start with an example I had while I was in school. So while I was in 400 level, I had an exam I wrote and I had an F. So I got an F in that course, and it was a big setback because as at that time I was top of class. So when the F came, it was really shocking, and a few of my friends rallied around and they were asking lots of questions that how did it happen and what happened. It was a major setback for me, but the first step I made, I had to go back because I needed to write the exam again, the course again, the following session. So the first thing I did, I scouted around the set that was after me. So I asked questions, who was the best guy in that class? So I got the best person in class. I called him. I said, this happened. I failed this course and I'm writing it again. I want to be your friend and I would also like to share notes with you. So I basically worked on his lecture notes, and the surprising thing was that the next session I had the exam, I had an A. And eventually when we graduated from school, I still topped class. So as at that time, the failure motivated me so much that I wanted to make success of it. And it showed me, the truth of the matter was everyone felt I failed. But I had to look back and I realized what didn't work for me. The truth is I did some things wrongly. But to a friend out there, they wouldn't really understand. But I knew what I did that made me fail. So I had to correct those things. The truth of the matter is the most profound moments of my life are moments of failure. Someone said the most difficult moment in our lives comes with victory, same as success. Because most times when we get into success, the euphoria, the joy is usually much, that we do not oftentimes take cognizance of the lessons. But most times, just before a major failure is a major springboard. But most times we don't realize because it brings an emotional drawback. A psychological breakdown most times happen when people fail. Like it happened to me. I'm going to share another experience that has to do with business. That was a school experience. Yeah, I was dejected, but I had to get back to the drawing board. Eventually, when success came, the failure never mattered again. But the truth of the matter is I have found strength in periods of failure that is gotten to a point that sometimes I feel like, yeah, let the failure moments come. The reason is when failure comes, it gives a period of retrospect that success doesn't give. You at least see someone who is successful or who experienced a moment of success, who sits down and kind of look back, try and look through the details of everything that has happened. We hardly see it. But when people go through failure, it naturally brings us back to the drawing board. We see the pictures clearly. One of the experiences I've had in business is this. When failure happens in line of business or a venture, it's either two things. It's showing me that this is the way. I need to work more. I need to research more. I need to network more. Or sometimes it tells me I'm on a road that leads nowhere. But success wouldn't necessarily show me that. So I've been in some business ventures where I just get into it and I fail. I get back to the drawing board and the results are glaring in my face that what I've ventured into, I have not learned enough of it. and I don't have the prerequisite knowledge to make a success of it. If, for example, I had made little success, I got into my head, I could have put probably more resources, more emotions, and a lot of things. And if the major failure comes, it could be more emotional, it could be more destructive. So sometimes when the little failures comes, it gives an opportunity to go back to the drawing board, to look critically, it gives like a wider picture to analyze. And we learn the lessons gradually. Now, periods of failures gives us periods of reflection, which is really rare. That's why there's an example I would like to share. There's something, the oil industry in Nigeria, for example, the latest thing is, Dangote's refinery is up, and fuel prices a few weeks ago has been dropping and has been coming down. But nobody remembers how Dangote started all the idea of coming up with the refinery. About when Obasanjo sold, I think, Port Harcourt and Kaduna refinery to the consortium of Dangote and Oteda and maybe a few other persons. And they made payment for it, and Yar'Adua came and revoked the purchase. That was where the idea came for Dangote. To a normal person at that point, it's a major setback when you feel, okay, you've acquired this just to work on starting operation or trying to prepare ground, and all of a sudden it's revoked. To me, that failure was the major seed that has propelled everything we see today. I'm sure a few of his partners pulled out and the transaction was cancelled, but it fueled something massive in him. Now the man has like the biggest straight line refinery in the world, just from that singular occurrence, which to a normal person would have made someone give up entirely. Now he's created his name in the books, in the records, which will be very, very difficult to erase. There's a story I also like to share. There's a real estate investor in Lagos, Olawale Ayilara. I've been following him for a while, and I've learned some profound things about him. The fact that he has been able to venture across industries. But there's a particular story that seems humorous to me, and I think about it. There was a point, everybody who sees him like, okay, he's a big real estate player, yes. But there's a particular story he shared at a time that really touched me. So there's usually this worship experience in Lagos. That's the experience by the House on the Rock. And I think he was in Lagos. I think he just got to Lagos around that period. So he was a young businessman trying to find his footing and trying to get into business. I remember he shared the story, and he and maybe a few friends prepared meals. And the idea was the experience brings hundreds of thousands of people or tens of thousands. It will be a good avenue for them to sell meals. I don't know the number of meals they actually plan to sell at the event. And they made all the plans, the drinks and the meals. And eventually, he later realized that the event is something some people really come when the event is on, and the moment the event is over, people leave. The business analysis wasn't done properly. He realized by morning that nobody bought their meals, everybody left for home. So it was a business enlightenment and a learning curve for him. He was just new into business. But the truth of the matter, it was a major setback, but it also gave him profound wisdom, profound knowledge into understanding the requirements for the necessity for doing proper risk analysis, not just being overexcited about ideas. So that singular failure gave him knowledge, and now he is achieved a lot. And our perception, there's a particular story. There's a comic book I was familiar with growing up, Charlie Chaplin. A few people will not be familiar with the the person who found who came up about the idea of Charlie Chaplin and that comic figure. But the truth of the matter is, he was very unperturbed. He's an example of someone I would say was very unperturbed with things that seemingly felt like failure to him. Because when I read his story, he didn't see himself as a failure. And there was no point when he even felt down or emotional laden by the things we would call failure in that sense. Because while he grew up, he tried doing a whole lot of things in school which never worked. His physics classes, his science classes never worked. He was good in art, yes, in his sketches and a lot of these things, but it never worked for him. And at some point, he even tried to present his cartoon in the school magazine, and it never worked. And eventually, when he left school, he sent a letter to Walt Disney, which we all know, and he was trying to get his ideas into Walt Disney. And it never worked for him too. But there's something provided I read. I would say he has always been a loser. And this was one more loss for him. That was when he applied to Walt Disney. But they said in a very funny way, he just felt that his life was funny. And he felt all the events that has happened to him, the rejections, a few failures he had along the way. He said he saw the whole picture as if his life was a comic. He came up with an idea which depicted his life in the comic figure we see as Charlie Chaplin, who is always out with his kite in the wind or outside trying to get his kite to work. So that was what it depicted of his life. The failures of Charlie Chaplin trying to fly his kite was what it depicted of his life. And that's why we know him today. So it's a whole lot of retrospection time to reflect when failure comes. And as a champion, we should work on our mindset to understand that failure is very, very essential. We cannot do without it. In our journey, we cannot do without it. Winston Churchill said, failure is not fatal. It is not fatal at all. Most times when failure comes, we should harness it. Because if we harness it well, we harness our sail well to flow with the wind. We harness failure well. It's definitely going to bring something massive for us. I've checked a few things, advantages that failure does to us. And one of the things I mentioned them while I spoke earlier, it realigns our goals. Sometimes we're on the wrong path. Sometimes failure tells us to redirect. Then sometimes it makes us define our goals better. So those are some of the things failure does. Then again, the advantage to learning from failure is that the lesson usually sinks in way harder. Yes, pain is more emotionally salient than pleasure. So when we fail, we remember more. The lessons learned during periods of failure or during the low times are more profound on us. It is a period usually for genuine self-appraisal and retrospect. Failure can as well be humbling and has availed me the most deep-seeking personal moment where ideas flow endlessly, which the failure of success hardly gives us. Also, failure builds strength of character. Some of the attributes we need as individuals to forge well in life most times are built during moments when we are alone, moments when failures come. That's when we build most of these features like courage, patience, resilience, and hard work. it builds these things in us. So I've come to see that period as when we build strong character. It's a period to build strong character as well. In short, failure is a better teacher in life, and we should embrace it well. I would also like to note that there is no man in history who has led a life of ease. That's comfort zone. Comfort zone is an enemy. A life of ease, whose name? There's no man in history who has led a life of ease, whose name is worth remembering. When we do realize this, it makes an effect on us that we must prepare our minds for failure. And we must also be ready to document all the lessons we have learned and how we can apply it going forward in our lives. I would also like to talk about the fear of failure. There's a saying that I've always loved all these years. They said, on the plains of hesitation lies the bleached bones of the countless millions who on the threshold of victory sat down and in waiting, they died. Some people, just because of what our society has tagged as failure or what we knew as failure growing up, they don't make the move. They don't even move an inch. And a lot of people do not realize that all it takes is for them is to look failure in the face. And we realize that there's really, really nothing there. I personally, as an individual, it applies to me. And this program is actually a motivation for me as well. There are things I know I could push for. There are new grounds I know I can push myself into. But sometimes from nowhere, that fear of failure, it's sort of an illusion. We just sit back there. It holds us back from doing the things we are required to do. But a few times in the past, I've realized that the moment I venture, what we see as fear, sometimes it could be the right networking that I need. I think about it like, how do I get the right people around me, the right network of people, maybe the finance to get it done, the knowledge and everything. But what I've realized is the moment I break my goals into little steps, I break the goals into little steps, I have everything properly documented. This is the kind of relationship I need. This kind of networking I need. This is the kind of mentor I need to get this thing done. I discover as I take every little step, that fear breaks down. And I've also realized that aligning myself with people of like minds who do similar things and who also have this same vision to life, as much as I get close to them, I realize that the fear breaks down gradually. And by the time they share their experiences of failure, I just begin to realize that it's nothing. Even sometimes by associating with them, I even avoid some of the failures or setbacks they have made. Because it's like I'm supposed to get into same setback or same failure, but I discovered my friend Mr. Hay has done this. Maybe he has moved some miles ahead. By associating with him, I'm able to navigate. I don't have to get into error A or get into setback B that he has been through. So in my interactions and trying to learn, I just realized that everything becomes very open. I see the picture clearly and I become more open to the joy that lies before me, not necessarily at the failure. When the failure comes, I'm at ease because I know that, okay, I'm on a good path. I get back to my drawing board and I pick the lessons. Everything that required, that we see as mentorship, as mentorship and people have gone ahead, basically it's about failure. It's not about their successes alone. So when they share their stories, it's about their resilience in the face of failure. So one, two, three things I want us to pick from all what I've said is this: failure is not a deterrence for us. It is just a setback. And it's a beautiful setback depending on how we look at it, depending on how we decide to embrace it. I've embraced failures. I've failed countless times. I've done some funny businesses that when I tell some people, they laugh. They can't imagine me doing this. Yes. Some of them I had to push forward and I made a success of it. Some I had to push back. So failure is just a setback. It is not a deterrent to success. Secondly, we should understand that failure is a key ingredient to life. And the earlier we embrace it as part of our life's journey, the better. So those two things, very, very important. It creates an avenue to learn and to broaden, to expand, and to enlarge. But we should also take note, when failure comes, we should not just push ahead just like that. We should pick the lessons that failure is showing us. We should pick them properly, and we should harness it in moving forward from that point. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you so much, Joe. That was very powerful and very insightful. And I hope that we took notes, friends, as you went through that. So thank you. Joe is still gonna come back. We're gonna take Q&A. So as we go through this, please put your questions in the chat. Because it's very important so that we can cover those questions. So there are things that are probably going through your mind right now, and you're thinking, so what does this mean, right? What is this? And things like that. So put those together, and we can take them as questions as once we're done with this talk session. So now, what are we really truly saying? And really very quickly, I just want to pick on, hit on some points. What are we truly saying, right? We're not saying that whenever we set out to achieve anything, you should have in your mind that you want to fail. As a matter of fact, I've never seen anybody that starts any venture and in their mind, they are predetermined that they want to fail just because they want to learn from failure. No, that's not how it works. That's not what we're saying, right? We always want to do anything the first time and get it right the first time, right? But there are times in our lives that we never get it the first time. There will be times in our lives that we would never get it the first time, and it's okay, okay? Failure at that point, at that level, it's okay. It's okay. Joe said something. He said, absence of failure, of success is what failure is defined as. I think failure needs a redefinition in the dictionary, right? And I'm going to give you my definition of failure today, because the truth is that definition, as I said, has conditioned people's mind. It has conditioned people's mind to a point that when they fail, their response to failure is not good. Their response to failure is not what we want. It's not what we expect, right? So when people fail, they either go back and say they're not trying again because there's no motivation. And for those that have good people around them, or for those that understand what you do when you fail in order to get back up, they try again and they get it, right? So I think that definition of failure needs to be changed. They need to redefine failure. So this morning, what is failure? He talked about it, but I'm going to give you so that we can remember very well using the alphabet, the letters in the word failure. Now, F in failure means to fall. Okay, to fall. And PT said it while it was opening that we're going to fail. We're going to fall. We're going to definitely, certainly fall at some point. And you should be scared if everything you do, always at all times leads to success. It probably means you haven't tried something that is greater than you ever. Okay. If you have ever tried anything that is still within your capacity, but if you tell a very small-minded person, they will generally tell you this thing you're trying to achieve is way too big for you. That's why we always say that don't tell your dreams to really small-minded people, right? So it is very, very important to understand that we are going to fail. And I'm going to share some of my practical examples too, personally. So how have I ever fallen in my life, right? I can give you specific examples in my personal life. There was a time I was on a journey of self-development in Nigeria, and I wanted to, because I had known that I want to impact the world. I want to impact friends, family, people around me to really see life, have a better outlook to life. Okay. God created us here for a purpose, and it's very important we understand that purpose to be able to live that purpose out. And if we don't understand it, then your first assignment is that understanding. So when I got on that journey, there was a lot of failures on the way, right? I tried to learn things, read books, listen to people, but I started to see that even though with all the things I was doing, like listening to people who I see far away as my mentor, one of them um, is Martin Luther King, John Maxwell, and a host of others too. So I started to listen to them. I started to hear them speak. I learn all the techniques and all of those things, right? But I still saw that because of my own definition of success, right? Because of my own definition of success, I thought I was really failing, right? And maybe I was. Maybe there were some things that I was trying at that time that were too big for my capacity, or people around me made me feel like these things were too big for my mental capacity. So I started to just leave that dream because of that. I was starting to accept that maybe that's not for me. And perhaps you're listening to me this afternoon, and there are people around you making you feel like the things that you're trying to achieve, the things that you want to achieve, the things that you want to really succeed in, the things that you want to be known for, the things that you believe that were deposited in you as your purpose, that people around you making you believe you cannot and you were not made for those things. Well, you're in the right company. I've been there, right? So I saw that as falling, right? So that's one classical example for my personal life. Now, growing up to in school, right? This was when I was in secondary school. I think some of you who are really close to me may have heard this before. I failed out of secondary school, like repeated classes, like 3 times, right? I did like 3 times, really, truly. So there have been instances of failure in my life. So in retrospect, those were times where I failed, right? So in retrospect, when I think back now, right, I really cannot say that the turnaround, the change that happened was as a result of me understanding failure. As a matter of fact, I would tell you that some people around me told me that school wasn't meant for me. Now, that's part of the things that the voices around you, the people that talk to you, that give you reviews on things you do that you probably have done first time, even the second and even the third, and they told you that this not meant for you. It doesn't mean they're right. It really doesn't mean they're right. Thomas Edison had 1,000 attempts at creating a light bulb, right? And listen to what he said. He said, each failure, I saw them as a lesson that brought me closer to success. He saw every attempt in the 1,000 times as a lesson, something to learn. It's a gap closure. So the first thing I want to tell us this afternoon, wherever you are, is change your mindset about failure. You really truly have to do it. If anybody is going to maximize what failure can bring to you as an advantage, what failure can bring to you as a benefit, then you've got to first of all change your outlook to failure. Failure is not bad. Joe said it, and Winston Churchill said, success is not final. It's not final. In fact, the if you're not careful, if you have so many success, the damage that could do for you is more than any damage failure could do if you have the right response to failure. is more. Because the truth is you're in that place where you think you have succeeded. Now, success doesn't mean that there were not gaps in between that journey. There may have been gaps, but the final score, like you take exam, somebody who scored 80 does not mean the person know everything that we're taught in the class. And even if you score 100, it still doesn't mean that at that point in time, they were just select questions that were asked you in the exam. And it doesn't mean you knew everything at that point in time. It doesn't mean that. So there were gaps. But if you succeed, you may not go back to try to figure out what the gaps were. But if you fail, you're forced to go back and find the gaps and close the gap. So that's why I said that success have a tendency of making you not reflect, but failure will definitely make you reflect. That's F. We are going to fall, right? The A is acknowledge when you fall. There's a piece of acknowledgement. See, some of us when we fail, we tend to go back to a zone where we don't want to acknowledge that we just failed. We don't want to acknowledge that we just fell, right? And so because of that, we're going around in the same circle asking why, which is not a bad question, but you're not asking why did I fail? You're asking why me? There's a difference, okay? You're not asking why did I fail? You're asking why me? Well, if it's not you, who helps? I always say that. The important question to ask is why me? I mean, why did I fail? Not why me. And you will never get to that point of reflection until you acknowledge that you just failed, until you acknowledge that you just fell. You will never get to that point. It's somebody who, they talk about stages of grief. Take failure. There are stages of grief. It happens. We're shocked, and we're all going to go through that emotion, right? It's normal. We're human beings. But are you going to stay in those emotions? That's the question, right? So that when you go through those stages of grief, don't stay on reflecting why it happened to you or why you. Ask the question, why did you fail? Why did you fail? And try to figure out the gaps. That's how you get better. So acknowledge it. Acknowledge it. There's a guy in Nigeria right now that's making his own cars and on. So many people don't know that guy started with selling motorcycle parts, right? He started with selling motorcycle parts. He ran into several issues, financial problems, a lot of things. A lot of things a lot of things. But I was reading about him, and there was a point where he said that those failures made him understand well enough what not to do when you start a business. So he had a moment of acknowledgement, and he took time to reflect on those times. Okay, so it's very important that you take your time to acknowledge when you fail. So when he acknowledged, what did he do? He used that energy that he gathered, the momentum he gathered from failing, and just poured everything out into his business of car making. And look at him today, right? It doesn't mean he's still there yet, right? But he's done so well enough that people know about him. He's done so well enough that I'm sure that car manufacturers that are not even in Nigeria will list him as a competition when they do their market reviews. I'm telling you that. Okay, for Nigeria market and other African markets where he sells into, they will list him as a competition. He's done so well for himself. So what I'm saying is that moment of acknowledgement is very important. Very important. So the next thing you're going to do, the high in failure, is investigate. It's very important. And I think I've hit on this a little bit. That's the gap. Why did I fail? Understand where the gap lies. Understand where is the gap. Because you see, these responses that we have to failure is what fuels what we get out of it. You can have two people failing, and you can only have one of them coming back on top or coming back succeeding. The reason is because they had two totally different directional responses to that failure. So it's very important that you and I have the right response or responses to our failures. If we don't do that, if we don't have the right responses to our failure, chances are that you're going to keep repeating that. And that's not what we're saying here today, right? When you do something, it's okay, and it's okay to have to redo it. It's okay to have to redo it. But when you're redoing it, not because you closed the first gap, but you still created the same gap that existed the first time, then something is wrong. The 1000th time that Thomas Edison had to learn, he wasn't making the same mistake over and over again. Go read it. Okay. So understand that you close a gap, don't let that gap reoccur the next time. If you fail again, as a gap again. Okay. And perhaps maybe it's going to reoccur. Maybe your response the first time wasn't right. And it's okay too. As long as you don't lose the drive of your response to failure, it's very, very important. The hell in failure is learn. Learn. We have to learn. We have to learn from our failures. And I think Joe really beat this horse to death. It's very, very important. You really, truly have to learn. Steve Jobs, as an example, I mean, all of you probably know this, and I'm sure most of us know, if not all of us. When he co founded Apple, he was fired at some point. He was fired. That guy was fired from Apple. Can you imagine being fired from a company you co-founded? And when he was fired, he started two other companies, Next and Prexer, right? So when he started those two companies, Next and Pixar, he gathered so many insights, he gathered so many learnings from the things that he was fired for, the things that he built around him, right? To a point that his comeback was more like a resurgence. He went back to Apple. He went back to Apple. So when failure happens to us, when we fall, when you fail at school, when you fail at the place of work, even when your marriage fails, when your relationship fails, because what we're talking about applies to every area of life. When something is not right with something, I think a time of reflection is very important, because without a time of reflection, you will never come to an acknowledgement that this just did not work. This is not working. And there's other qualities that help you come to that realization and that acknowledgement. Now, humility is really one big one out of it. You really truly have to be humble. You really truly have to be humble. And if you're not humble, then there's a problem somewhere. Okay. So we need to be very humble to get to a point where we say to ourselves, yes, I just failed. Acknowledge it's okay. It doesn't reduce you, it doesn't make you less of who you are. It does not. So we get to that point. So, and we only get to that point if we allow ourselves to really understand that first we are falling, second, acknowledge it, and then investigate on it. And on our investigation, the findings, we start to learn from the findings. It's very, very important. Now, the U is understand. Okay. So when you map out your learnings, understand your learnings. And I truly want us to understand what I'm saying here. Understand the understand I'm talking about here. So when somebody fails, again, I say when person is saying why me, that's the wrong understanding. Okay. But when you're saying to yourself, why did I fail? Then you truly want to understand what the gaps were in that journey that you just came out of unpalatably, right? So you want to understand. So that understanding is very key, is very important. Okay. We all know that failure has been given, as we've said this, it's been given a negative connotation. The first thing, as I said, is change of mindset, right? So the R is after you've understood why you fail, and you know it like the back of your hand, right? You have to realign. The heart is realignment. You have to realign yourself, position yourself. That's what I mean. Okay. If it was that, you know, you put your head this way, but your head truly really needs to be like this. Understand it. Right. So understand what you need to shift, what you need to change. And it may not be direct, it may be a combination of different metric or combination of different things you have to do that will cause that realignment to happen. But whatever it is, make sure that you're on the journey of realignment. And the last one is E, evolve. You want to evolve, okay? You want to evolve. When we fail, it leaves us with a feeling. There's an emotional feeling of not relevant. You know, there's a high tendency that you could get yourself to a point where you're thinking somebody else is better than you. That's why they passed. That's why they succeeded. And you failed because you're definitely less than that person. That's not true. I'm telling you now, that's not true. Practical examples. The people in that my class growing up, that I gave you the example that today I look at, they were really very successful in class, first, second position. I look at them today, you know, it's all everything is still by the grace of God. But the truth is, your back will stay down if you keep it down. Your back will stay down if you keep it down. It's all about your response to failure. So evolve in your thinking, evolve in your action, evolve in your relationship. Understand why you fail. Understand, identify the people who can help you through it. Identify the people who can help you through it, and don't be proud to approach them for support, for help. I giving personal story of when I was, I'll give another personal story. I was recently trying to start a business recently, and the friend of mine then that we were trying to start it together, um, just did something that was, you know, um, I wasn't expecting, right? So in a nutshell, to cut the story short, that business failed. Not a lot have been invested into it, but I think understanding that I've acquired over the years, you know, helped me to do some risk assessment of going too fast. Sometimes going too fast for some project and some things you want to execute really isn't it. Sometimes the best way to go fast is to go slow, right? The best way to go fast is to go slow. So I was really slowing things down personally on my end, especially because I just recently had another experience of it was like I was the one speeding up things with another person. It was a this another person was a gas plant. I was speeding it up. I was speeding it up. But luckily, I didn't fail in that one too. But the person just pulled out because things weren't working again. So when those lessons and some other lessons, I applied into that new one. It's like, okay, I got to take this easy. And taking it easy made me realize that this may not work. Okay. So these are the things that we have to sit down and reflect on. These are the things that we have to sit down and reflect on. So it is very, very important. We cannot overemphasize this. Your response to failure is important. Your response to failure is very important. And again, don't think that failure is a bad thing. It has a bad connotation, especially in the part of the world where we're from, right? But listen to what Nelson Mandela said. He said, "Do not judge me by my successes. Judge me by how many times I fell down and got back up again. Don't judge me because you see this as a success in my life, but look at me and read about the number of times I failed and I got back again. That is telling you how important failure is to those success that people see and celebrate. So celebrate wins, but pay very close attention to your losses. Is very, very important. Now, so what are some of the benefits, really quickly, that failure has for you? And I'm closing. The first one is learning and growth. And I think Joe did justice to this also. The place of growth is a place of discomfort. Okay. I have never seen so many people, that's even if there's any, that I ever have grown in the place of comfort. Okay. And failure is not comfortable. Failure is not. It's not. The emotions that you go through when you fail, especially when you failed, and maybe you're experiencing failure the first time and you're having to go over again. You've managed to gather yourself and try again. You're going to start to be afraid. And it's normal. Yes, you'll be afraid when you're trying it again. And it's okay to be afraid. It's normal to be afraid. But the truth of the matter is, failure, the emotions that you go through should not keep you down, but rather fuel you to desire more growth, to desire more learnings. There are valuable learnings that you're going to pick from failure that you may never pick from success. There are valuable lessons. that you will pick. There are valuable growth strategies that you're going to pick from failing that you may never pick from success. And we've talked about the example of Aliko Dangote, and we cannot beat that horse to death. There are other people that they have failed, and you can see. I could remember even recently while he was going through this starting up a refinery journey for Aliko Dangote. His interviews, you can tell that this guy is afraid. This guy feels like this is going to be the end of the road. So one time, Joe and I were talking about it. It's like the response on his face, like you can literally tell that this guy is shattered, right? Okay, but that's the emotion you will have if you're going to be a great man during moments that look like you're failing. We're going to do that. We're going to go through that. And it's okay. Let nobody tell us it's not okay. It's okay. But what is your ultimate response to it? What is your goal from that failure? Is what matters, is what tells what your next step would be and what your next outlook would be. So, learning and growth is very important. Second one I have here is resilience and perseverance. People who are resilient today, people who persevere, it's because they have had moments where they have understand how failure and how overcoming it build their character. This is about character building, right? When you understand that failure helps your character building, first it will keep you humble, okay? While I don't want you to have a mindset that people who succeeded or passed are better than you, but the truth is you're going to be drawn in to a point where you're reflecting. Now, when you're drawn in, what you're thinking about matters. Not why me, but why did I fail? That's very, very important. So it builds your mental and emotional resilience. You become very strong mentally. You become very strong emotionally. That's very, very important. That's very important. Then let's talk about creativity and innovation. In the place of failure, that's where you create. That's where you can innovate. Thomas Edison, we talked about him. Steve Jobs, we talked about him. There's a host of other people. In the place of failure, that's when something great came up. That's when something remarkable came up. Innovation and creativity, they're mostly birthed in failure. Okay, there's something for those of us in corporate world, whether it's in product development or anything, they call something rapid learning cycles. They just found a fancy word to refer to failure. That's failure. Rapid learning cycles. You did something, you want to test it, you failed. You go back again, take those learnings, put to something else, and try it again. You go back, you test it again, you fail. You come back again, you do it again, you fail. Even corporations do it. So how much more you as a person? You have to apply that to your life too. Give it a fancy name if that's going to help you not to have the African or the social mindset or the societal thinking about failure. Give it something else. Give it another name. Call it rapid learning cycle. Call it reflection time. Call it anything other than failure if that helps you. But that's what it is. That's failure in the workplace. So, but what that does for them eventually helps to create a viable product, a compelling product that people will be running to get, people will be running to have. And that classical example for that is that, some guy that I spoke about that has a car company right now in Nigeria. Now, really quick, those are the three lessons I wanted. There's a lot more, but if you get those three, and plus the ones that Joe mentioned, I think you're good to go for a start. Practical strategies. There are practical strategies that we need to do that we need to carry out. The first one, we have to embrace failure. We've been talking about this, embrace failure, and I'm not going to overbeat this. How do you embrace failure? Again, analyze what went wrong. What is it that went wrong? What is it that I did wrong? What is it that I could have done in a better way? I could have done better. I could have done well. What is that thing? Understand it, find it, know it, and seek feedback. Seek feedback from people around you, perhaps people that you did it together, know what they did right, what you compare it to what you did, and try to see, okay, so maybe they did this and they got this. So let me do this next time. Maybe I'll get this. And keep looking. Analyze your steps. Sit down, be practical about it, right? Seek feedback. Because this feedback will help you to really gauge where you are and where you need to be. And this feedback can come from your mentors, it can come from your peers, it can come from industry experts, depending on what it is you're trying to achieve success in. Just seek feedback. And when you get those feedback, don't keep them. The third one, make adjustment. Make the adjustment. You've got to make the adjustment. Those adjustments will not make themselves. Make it. And when you make them, the last one, stay persistent with them. Stay persistent with those adjustments. And the next thing after you have embraced failure through the following steps that I've given to you, reflect and learn. We've talked about that. Seek support. Don't walk in silo. Nobody's an island. There's always somebody that knows more. Trust me, somebody that knows more, somebody that you may even look more successful than that person, but they have really valuable insight and experience that you probably don't have, maybe because of exposure, experience, and environment. So be open to people's feedback and seek that support. Seek it from every walks of life. Everybody, mentors, peers, and industry experts. Adapt and persist. Very, very important. You really, truly have to adapt. You truly, really have to adapt to the new change, the new norm. You have changed your mindset about failure. You no longer see it as the end. In fact, you now see it as the beginning to something great. Okay. So once you get to that point, I think you are in the moment where you are adapting and you decide to persist in that reiteration of things that you need to do over and over again. Now, I'm going to close with this. You need to understand that failure is simply the opportunity to begin again. But this time, more intelligently. This is what Henry Ford said. You have an opportunity. Somebody's giving you a blank check and telling you, Dayo, and telling you, this person, Dolakwa, just mention my wife's name, and failure is not the end. It's a time to begin again. This is your time to start afresh. I'm giving you a blank check, another opportunity to begin again. But this time, please do it more intelligently. And I'm telling everybody listening to me this morning, this afternoon, wherever you are, it is not the end. It's just a time to start all over again. And please be confident in starting all over again. It is a time to begin again. But this time, let's start it more intelligently. And that's how we achieve what we want to achieve. Thank you, everybody, for listening to us. We are, I'm at time, and I think it's time for question and answer. Pastor T, do you want to help us moderate that? And we can have Joe as well.
Okay. All right, thank you, Pastor Dayo and Joe. Thank you. All right, I think we have two questions already. Joe, can you see the charts? I believe yes.
Yes, I can.
Okay, so please can you get on the second one? I think let's get on the second one first. Talk from Victor Lutoki. So his question is actually in the last, I think it's the last three lines, but I think it's right we read down from the beginning. He said most of the time the focus is about not giving up. However, I think there might be certain times to consider saying a final goodbye to a venture and try another way due to varying factors. So his question is, realistically, at what point should that be considered to say goodbye to something that is not working?
Yes, this is what I'm going to say. When there's a setback or what we refer to as failure, one has to get back to the drawing board. Now, when you get back to the drawing board, you have to tell yourself the truth. I will share examples in business. So when the setback comes in business, the first thing I analyze it, what went wrong? So when I'm able to pick the things that went wrong, one key thing I've noticed is this, is either I never had enough knowledge in that field to propel me to success. It's either that or it's just a natural occurrence of some oversight that is special to that type of business. For example, it could be business, it could be relationship, it could be the knowledge wasn't enough to go ahead to achieve failure. So it's either two things. I tell myself the truth. It's either I acquire from that point, I acquire the necessary skills or the necessary knowledge, or build relationships that I know would help me. But one thing I've learned is sometimes I've been into business that were not really my passion in that sense, that I would naturally not be so excited about gathering knowledge or wisdom in that particular field. So I've gotten to that point where I tell myself, like, Joe, all you are trying to get off these things, probably maybe the monetary, this thing, or some other things that I feel are not strong enough. Sometimes I've pulled back because, especially in the line of business, I've realized that it's hard to make success of it when you don't have the passion for it. So one key thing I've learned in life is I don't venture into things I don't have the passion for. While I have considered option of maybe, okay, getting someone who has the drive or the passion for it and have the person anchor it, yes, that's another option. But most times when I don't have the passion for it, I try to take a step backwards. So I tell myself the truth at that point. The drive I have at this point, is it enough for me to take another move? I tell myself the truth. The truth is, if I give it the required time, the required energy, the required research, the required wisdom it needs, I'm going to make a success of it. But I tell myself the truth. At this point, am I ready to pay the price for it? But it's easy for me to pay the price if I have the passion for it, or it's something I really, really thirst for, or something I'm really hungry for. It's very easy. If it's something I'm hungry for, I don't look at the setback. I don't look at what is holding me back. So as an individual, you must be able to pick all these things out and really analyze it. The results, the step you need to take would speak out. You would see it clearly, basically, at that point. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Joe. Pastor Dayo, please, can you add up to this? Then we go to the second one.
Yeah, I think I totally agree with what Joe said. But in addition to that, if you read the question from that person is, I think having understand what your passion is and why you went into that venture. So we're not questioning why you did it in the first place. You still have the strong passion. But you said, when do you say goodbye? Find out with venture that and try another way due to varying factors. Okay, so you already put something in there as a caveat, right? That varying factor does not mean you have to say final goodbye to it. You know, there's something they call business landscape, right? There's a time I was working on a product development work, and we looked at what the business landscape is saying at that time, and we saw that even though this is a very great product, very viable, if you put it in the market right now, nobody's going to buy it. When the project was started, it was a good landscape because it was during COVID. And as COVID was ending, we saw that, numbers were going down and all of that. So I said that to mean you need to understand what your varying factor is. Okay, what is that thing that is causing that failure? The thing that you already said it yourself. What is that thing? Okay. So, and it necessarily does not mean you have to say final goodbye. It's okay to take a pause. I call it a pause, right? There's no point. It doesn't make any sense when you know that there's something that is a metric that you've already identified, because it sounds like you have, right? Due to varying factors, whatever factors you've identified, and you keep checking those factors, they're still varying back and forth. Does not make sense to try again at that point, because I best believe you're going to get the same results. And that's how you get tired of what you're doing, because you're expecting the favorable results in a condition where you already know that this thing is varying considerably and it may not be favorable. So understand what is varying, identify them, and keep a watch on them. Pause your work, and then you can reactivate when it is. But saying a final goodbye, it is. But if there is no factor, I want to take it a little bit higher. There is no factor that is varying. You just keep doing something and you just keep failing and you just keep failing. My question to you will simply be, have you done it 1,000 times? Okay, realistically. And all of that things constant. Your passion is constant. You're not doing it because your friends are doing it. You're not doing it because you're forced to do it. It's your passion. There's something driving you. And it shouldn't be money, I'm telling you, because if it's money, you get tired. Okay. There needs to be something else that is driving you, that when you get tired or when you fail, something that's more than money, that you look beyond the money, you look beyond what's around to really go and take that to the next level. So it's very, very important to ask yourself that question. The truth is this: have you done it 1,000 times? Have you done it 1,000 times? Um, there's another saying that says fall 7 times and then you get up 8. Fall 7, get up 8. Okay, so how many times have you done it? Have you just failed twice, 3 times, 4 or 5, and you're tired, right? So look at that too. As long as your passion and the reason you're into it is right. So there is really no, this is the final answer, this is the time you gotta put a stop to it. It's based on you, that person, and what you're doing, and some other factors. So if this person needs more clarity and you like to be very specific to something that's very particular to what you're seeing as you're failing in your personal life or your career, professional, or whatever it is, you can reach out. You can reach out, and we can talk and see if truly you have the passion for it. There's a test for passion. We take you through that test for passion, and then we do other things, and we figure out if truly that thing is meant for you or not. And then we tell you to keep trying or tell you to stop based on whatever we get from those tests. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So, Mr. Victor Olutoki, if you still need more time or clarity, just feel free to reach out directly to the initiator. All right, so we go to the question from Jolayemi Shemilore. He said, how do we go about it when our failure comes from wrong relationships? I mean, when we fail because someone we trusted beat us, how do we learn to trust again? Since relationship is also a key ingredient for success, as we have learned. So I think Dayo can start on that.
That's a really, really great question. And as I said, it's great because I've had a lot of those experiences, really. Now, and not to sound very cliche, right? But I'll let you know that your response to it is what tells you, or is what guarantees how you build your trust again. Okay. How have you positioned this person in your life? See that, and we all make that mistake. It's okay. We look to people as God. We have expectations of people. Is it wrong? No. Is it right? I don't think it's right. I don't think it's fair of anybody to have the kind of expectation that you will place on God on anybody. Okay. Um, Treat humans as humans. Make rooms for failure with humans. Okay. Don't put all your eggs in one basket for people, for human beings. Okay. But if this has happened to you, the way to come back from it is you have to sit down and you have to understand that even though you're calling that a wrong relationship, it may truly be a wrong relationship, right? Understand why is that person in your life. And sometimes we have wrong relationships for the right reasons. Now, when you have wrong relationships for the wrong reason, then you let them go. Okay. Sometimes there are wrong relationships for right reasons, and I hope we understand. I don't want to go into example because of our time, but sometimes there are wrong relationships in our lives for the right reason. Most times the wrong relationships are for the wrong reasons. So those ones, just let go. But the ones that are a wrong relationship, but you have a right reason to keep them around. Maybe you're trying to impact that person, you're trying to influence that person. You have seen what's wrong about them. Then I don't think letting them go as such is what it is, except if they want to go. Don't hold anybody back. Okay, never force people to stay. That's relationship 101. Okay, so how do you then go about building the trust back? Now, if it's a wrong relationship for the wrong reason, what are you trying to build back? There's nothing to be built back. It's the wrong reason. Let the person go. But if it's a wrong relationship for the right reason, now you have to go back to your reason for having that relationship in the first place. Who is this person to you? What are the reasons this person is in your life? Okay, because if you don't understand these things, it becomes very hard for you to understand if you're going to draw a line, how thick the line will be, how thin the line will be. Because people who are even with you, they are wrong relationship, but they're still with you for the right reason. They still need boundaries. Okay, you need to understand those boundaries. Okay, so when you do that, you can begin to come out of this. Okay. It really boils down to the reason we put so much expectation on human beings, and we got to stop that. We need to stop that. We need to stop putting so much expectation on people. And that's not saying we shouldn't have great relationships. That's saying that give people room to fail. Okay. Don't build a tower around people, you know. Attempt it, but don't trust that it's going to succeed. So that when it does not succeed, you're not disappointed. You don't get yourself in a point where you're finding it hard to trust again, right? There are key ingredients, as you said, relationships are, but we have to understand we do not want to get to a zone where we put so much trust. They're not God. So people put so much trust in people as if they're God. They're not God. The only person we should put trust in 100% is God. Okay, so maybe you have to check that first, and from there you can start to build a really viable and healthy relationship.
All right, thank you. Joe, would you want to add something before we take feedbacks?
I don't think I've got much to say, but everything I would like to say, I think Dayo mentioned already. But basically, humans can fail because they are imperfect and they could be subject to some factors or forces which could actually make them fail or disappoint us. But the truth of the matter is, because people fail us or situations fail us, are we going to brood over that and not do the needful? So in any venture, any adventure we find ourselves, any decision making we find ourselves, we should understand that we should leave clearance for these little failures and these little disappointments. What is ahead of us is the goal or the vision we have. So when these things happen, when humans fail, we should be able at that point to galvanize whatever we have left. If we need to make new relationships or to grow or nurture the other ones we have around us, I think at that point we would be able to make such decisions and forge ahead. Thank you.
All right, right. Jola Emishemilori, I believe that is answered. And if you need further clarity, please feel free to reach out to the initiator for clarity. All right, so we have just a few minutes to go. Do we have more questions? Can just give room to one or two. Okay, thank you. All right, do we have questions? We can give room to one or two.
And you can ask your question live too.
Live, yes.
I want to see the courageous folks.
Going.
Looks like somebody's typing, right?
No, just think that's just a reaction.
Okay.
Deborah Drodala, is there a question? Okay. Okay.
That's absolutely true, Joe. Myself
Mm.
too. It's interesting how every time I go through moments of failure, I just default to that story, right? So, okay, well, you're only at the third try or fourth, and this guy was at the 1000th try. Okay, so I think if we all think and reflect that way, um, it gets us in a better place. We think about the fact that we are in a company of people who are um, truly are not um, putting their backs down because they failed or they did something that needs to be checked and adjusted, right? So I think when you lean on and look at people, and it's all about perspective. You can also see somebody around you who have done it 30 times and you say that, and the person didn't try again, and you say that, well, I did it 5 times or even six, 10 times. And this person that did it 30 times did not. So what's the chance I'm going to fail? Let me drop it to. Depends on who you're looking to. Okay. Change your mindset, change your perspective, change the people that you're using as your benchmark. You got to change it. Okay. You have to change it across the spectrum. Okay. I never don't believe nothing is impossible. I always say this. I don't believe anything is impossible. And that's partly stemming from my faith. With God, all things are possible. If you have that in your mind and you're truly sure that you're backed by God in any venture, does not matter how many times you've done it, just keep trying it. And again, ask yourself, have you failed 1001 time, right?
Okay. So we have a question actually. Jola Emishemilore is asking again. Said, how many businesses can one venture into at the same time?
Joe, you want to take that?
I think you should take it.
Okay. So, so, so that's a really good question, right? You have to first look inward. What's your capacity? Okay. You can venture into as many business, and this is saying that you've done your homework very well. It's not just doing business that matters. It's doing your homework before doing business. Some people do business just because their friends are doing business and they want to be a businessman too, or business. They want to be a businesswoman too. No, that's not why you do business. You do business because you've done your homework and you think that this is viable. It's going to make you money. The reason why in business is to make money. I always use Mindshift and one of my businesses as an example. I would say this one, I tell my friends, I really close friends. I think I've told PT and Joe this before. This one is for money making. This one is to reach out to people. So it's very important you understand the numbers behind the business you're going into. And then look inward after you've understood what's your capacity. If you don't have a capacity for more than one business and you try to, chances are you're going to go in the wrong direction. Okay, so look at your capacity. What is my capacity? Okay, sometimes you may not have capacity for a second business until the first business has taken off. Okay, look at Dangote. You know how long he's been talking about going into refinery? I'm just using somebody that's really close to us. There's other people that are in various businesses that you will see in their lives, they did not go into those businesses the same time. Okay. Sometimes you got to give it time. Let one take off very well and then go into the other one. Now, there are times that there's just little effort to run into business. That's why I say you have to understand your capacity. You may be able to do two at a time, you may be able to do three at a time, but look at your capacity. There's a lot of work in starting a business, especially if you're doing it right. If you want to do it right, there is a lot. I promise you, take it from me. There is a lot. Sometimes my wife complained that, she was just telling me this, not as complaint, we're having a challenge, like, this business, that. And she was like, well, we're yet to see something out of it. I said, well, just the fact that it's sustaining itself alone, I think it's telling me it's something in the right direction. There may just be things we need to look at and adjust. Okay, so there are times that you have to do that. There are times that you have to wait. There are times that you can start two things at a time. So understand what your capacity is because it's going to be time consuming. Just even one business, it's a lot of time, especially if you're doing it right. So that's very important.
Hello, everyone. I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
So I wanted to ask about proactive characteristics versus reactive. If you're the type of person like me, where you're more proactive, like you focus a lot of time on planning, preparation, focusing on prevention, but you're not good at crisis when they arise. If something doesn't go the way you exactly planned it, you may fall apart a little bit. And that's one of my weaknesses. So I want to know, how can you kind of balance that, or learn how to hone in more on reactive characteristics, so you're not disappointed even though you did all this planning.
Joe.
I think this attribute you've shared has a lot to do with temperament. That's why when we study people and people have made things happen, most times you'd realize that sanguines, a lot of times, they do achieve a lot. And the reason is why, while they don't spend so much time in planning and trying to figure out things, they just jump out there, they venture. They have high failure rate, yes, but they make success a lot too. So I fall into that category where I spend so much time planning a lot, I'm strategizing, I'm doing research, but there's this fear somewhere. I think it's an attribute of the male. The truth is, and the way we take setbacks for melancholies, the way we take setbacks too could quite be depressing to us. But you could see a sanguine could fail in business yesterday, and the next day is up already. So one solution I found to this is I try to get someone with a sanguine around me most times. So when I'm down, I have the person to encourage me. That's why some people go into business partnerships, because of things like this. The person, there's nothing bad in delegation. When we delegate, strengths are joined together, then weaknesses are reduced, sort of. So if, for example, I have a business partner and I know my strength is strategizing, doing the paperwork and trying to figure out things, I could allow the person do the part of the work that has to do with crisis management and failure management, for example, because I know when it happens, the person has the ability to quickly bounce back and push. Another thing is we have our temperament existing. Yeah, it's part of us, but we can actually surmount part of the natural weaknesses that comes with our makeup too as well. We could read books, we could improve, and we could learn in the process as well. Those are the things I have noticed. Some of us set back like this, it takes us a while to actually get ourselves up back together. I went to venture out to, we could spend a whole lot of time trying to figure out what's not going to work. Sometimes those things we're actually afraid of and actually not existing. In that sense, they are not existing. But sanguines have that edge. They just venture all out. They fail yesterday. You see him the next day. He's laughing as if nothing happened. So we could look at partnership. We could harness getting someone who has that attribute very close to us. Then we can also work on self-improvement. It really works. Thank you.
Yeah, so I think the right person, Joe, thank you for that profound response. That is powerful, like powerful. I actually shouted when we started, like, this guy is good. And I'm saying it again, you are good. Thank you. All right, so President, you have to respond to the First Lady. I think you are closer home, so.
No, I really don't have any response. I think that's a perfect response to it.
Perfect response. Perfect response.
So I think it's very important that you do those things. I know you're doing them. That Joe talked about. It's very, very important, because the truth is no man is an island. So if you do those things, I think there's going to be positive results. So we have strength and weaknesses. So understanding and accepting it sometimes is a challenge, right? And probably that's why you get to a zone where you're thinking that you feel falling apart and stuff like that. You're also a perfectionist, but sometimes you just need to lean on others around you, which is very profound. Thanks, Joe, for that.
All right. So feedbacks. Or can we take one more question? I think we have a minute. Sorry, 5 minutes to. Can we still run 5 minutes? Oh, okay. Feedbacks. Before we turn it in, feedbacks. Okay, I can actually run through the list and call your name, tell us what you learned. There's a lot. Okay, so this conference is recorded. It's been recorded, and after now, hopefully before the end of next week, to be live on the Mindshift the Mindshift YouTube page, or Pastor Dayo's Dayo Okunlola's YouTube page. All right, I think that's been dormant for a while, but we have to wake that space up. All right, so because there's a lot to learn, and you agree with me that everything you've learned today shouldn't be for yourself alone. There are a lot of people around us that needs to really take in these learnings. All right, so Joy Adekunle, sorry, I'm just speaking randomly. Joy Adekunle, feedback, just 10-20 seconds. Peace Adeolu, Temilolu Oladipupo. Feedbacks. Okay. Woolies, Akinreti Olusegun Adeniyi. We can't have you on this. Akinreti Adeniyi, feedbacks. So today is Saturday. I don't want to believe people in Nigeria in parties, so they join from parties. So Henry Okuchukwu.
And you can drop your feedback in the
okay
chat too. So somebody just thank you, Deborah Drodola. That's well taken. Thank you. Go ahead, PT. Sorry.
All right. Yeah. So okay. Deborah noted. Thank you for that. All right. So I believe. Sorry, there's a lot of noise here. All right, so sorry, I have to caution. There was a lot of noise around me. All right, so okay, no feedbacks again. Thank you so much, everyone. Like I said, would have the recording posted before the end of next week, and we can go back to learn and also share with people around you, everyone around you. So thank you so much for joining. I'll turn it into Dayo Okunlola to. Okay, I think we have a message. Okay, from Busayo, I said thanks so much for this seminar. I get a lot from you guys. There are many things I jotted down in which I will definitely put into practice. Looking forward for the next edition. Thank you.
We're glad to hear that. Thank you. Keep those feedback coming, and you can send those feedback to us individually too. We really are looking for those feedback, and don't be too kind too. Be kind, but don't be too kind. Give us really constructive feedback. There's something you think can be improved, or is there something we said that you want to challenge? Please send it over. I'll be happy to take those. All right, go ahead, Pastor.
All right. Yeah, you can please close it.
All right. So again, thank you everybody every soul on the call this morning, this afternoon. We are so grateful that you made it. And I think on this journey together, we can begin to go back to our personal lives and have a different outlook to failure and leverage it as much as we can, as an advantage for the things we do and the results we get out of life versus allowing it to put our backs to the ground. It's very, very important. And so hopefully we'll see you guys again in another 3 months. We're going on another journey on a totally different exposition, and we will definitely be in touch when the time comes. So thank you, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your day. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.